يا نفس إن لم تظفري لا تجزعي.
The date is January 17th, 2026. The world is holding its breath. In the Persian Gulf, the USS Abraham Lincoln cuts through the waves, a clear message. Meanwhile, in the Eastern Mediterranean, Turkey is flexing its naval muscle. But while all eyes are fixed on these familiar geopolitical chess moves, the real storm, the one that matters, is gathering force in the commodity markets. A crisis is brewing that could render all this advanced military hardware completely and utterly useless. Think about this for a second. What if the most sophisticated piece of military technology, the smartest tank, the most precise missile, the most advanced AI, all shared the same fatal flaw, a single critical vulnerability? An element that if you took it away would turn billions of dollars of military might into nothing more than expensive hunks of scrap metal. Well, that element exists, and it's silver. You see, by 2026, silver is no longer just a precious metal you see in jewelry or coins. It has become the strategic Achilles heel of every major world power. It's the one indispensable component that, through its scarcity, could bring our entire high-tech civilization and its ability to wage war to a grinding halt. Today, we're going to do the uncomfortable math. We're going to calculate just how fast a major global conflict could vaporize what's left of the world's silver.
We're going to walk through three distinct scenarios, each one escalating in severity. First, we'll look at a regional but high-tech conflict. Then, we'll examine what happens when the very source of silver production is attacked. And finally, we'll game out a full-blown global conflict, where military demand clashes head-on with the needs of our technological society. And throughout this, we'll track what this means for prices, in a world where gold is already screaming past $4,600 an ounce. The fundamental question we're exploring is this: are we rapidly approaching a physical limit, a point where modern warfare is no longer possible simply because we've run out of the materials to build the machine?
Right now, a lot of the focus is on gold, and it's easy to see why. When it's over $4,600 an ounce, you know the financial system has a deep-seated problem. But that's just the tremor. The real earthquake, the systemic shock, is building in the silver market. Because of its unmatched conductivity and reliability, silver is absolutely essential to everything that defines the modern world. And the critical fact is, we are using it up far, far faster than we can pull it out of the ground. This structural deficit is the dry tinder, just waiting for a spark. So, let's light that first spark. Scenario 1. A full-blown war erupts in the Middle East. You can see the writing on the wall. In Washington, the conversation is no longer if they should strike Iran's nuclear program, but when. And this war wouldn't be a long, drawn-out affair on the ground. No, this would be a showcase of 21st century power, a fast, brutal conflict fought with precision munitions from the air and sea. And every single one of those weapons is absolutely packed with silver. Let's get specific and put some hard numbers to this. Consider the Tomahawk cruise missile. It's the workhorse of the U.S. Navy, a true marvel of engineering that can fly hundreds of miles to hit a target the size of your garage door. But buried deep inside its guidance systems, its complex circuitry, and its powerful batteries, there is a secret ingredient, a material it absolutely cannot function without. That's right. A single Tomahawk missile requires up to 15 kilograms of silver. Let that sink in. This isn't a trace amount. We're talking about a core industrial component, a significant quantity for every single missile fired. Now let's scale that up and see what it means in a real-world fight. In a high-intensity conflict, a conservative estimate would see at least 4,000 cruise missiles and precision bombs launched in the first 30 days alone. At 15 kilos per missile, you're looking at 16 metric tons of silver, just gone, vaporized in 1 month. And that's just what's happening in the air. At sea, our modern torpedoes rely on massive silver-zinc batteries. A single heavy torpedo can contain up to 50 kilograms of pure silver. If naval warfare breaks out in the Strait of Hormuz, the burn rate for munitions and critical spare parts could hit 800 tons of silver per year. So what does this do to the global supply? Well, the existing deficit has already drained inventories to dangerously low levels. A conflict of this scale is like throwing jet fuel on the fire. It would accelerate the timeline to zero. The day the vaults at COMEX in New York and the LBMA in London are physically empty of registered silver, that day gets pulled forward by an entire year. We'd be staring at empty shelves by the end of 2026. In the price, gold, as the ultimate safe haven asset, would almost certainly soar past the $6,000 mark. But silver becomes something else entirely. It's no longer just a precious metal.
It's a strategic commodity being consumed and destroyed on the battlefield. It becomes the new gunpowder. In this scenario, we would almost certainly see silver blow past $150 an ounce, causing the historic gold-to-silver ratio to completely collapse. In a high-tech war, silver isn't just valuable, it's everything.
All right, a consumption shock is one thing, it's bad, but our second scenario is exponentially worse. For this, we're going to shift our focus away from the Middle East and look at America's own backyard. Imagine a scenario involving a major U.S. military intervention in Latin America. Perhaps an operation in Mexico against the cartels, or even an invasion of Venezuela to secure oil.
Now, a scenario like this would be an absolute death blow to the silver market, and here's why. It's not just about using up more silver, which they would. It's about simultaneously shutting off the tap at its source. You get a massive spike in military demand hitting at the exact same moment that global supply collapses. It is, quite literally, the perfect storm.
And here is the geopolitical choke point. Mexico is the #1 silver producer on the planet. When you combine its output with Peru and their neighbors, this one single region controls nearly half of the world's entire silver production. A military conflict here would bring that production to a screeching halt. We're talking about sabotage, destroyed infrastructure, workers fleeing the conflict. The global supply chain would be severed, cutting 10,000 tons of annual production overnight.
And at the same time, the U.S. military itself would be consuming enormous quantities of silver for its own operations. We're talking drone swarms for surveillance, guidance systems for air support, advanced communications. You add that military demand on top of the already insatiable hunger from the AI industry, and the result is just staggering. The world's freely available above-ground silver inventories would be completely exhausted in less than 10 months. What does price even mean at that point? The market for physical silver would simply cease to function. Sure, gold might hit $8,000 an ounce, but for physical silver, you could see prices of $400, $500, maybe even $600 an ounce, and that's if you could even find an ounce for sale. Major industries, from defense to tech, would pay literally any price to avoid a complete shutdown. The paper market would implode. The real value would be whatever someone is willing to part with for the physical metal itself.
And that brings us to our final scenario, a global conflict. This is the nightmare scenario. This is where the unstoppable force of massive military consumption collides with the immovable object of the 2026 AI revolution. Right now, as we speak, data centers for the new AI boom are being built, and they consume unprecedented amounts of silver for their high-end chipsets and connections.
In a global war, every major government faces an absolutely impossible choice. Do they allocate their dwindling national stockpiles of silver to building the missiles, torpedoes, and jets they need to win the war today? Or do they allocate it to building the AI data centers and technological infrastructure they need to dominate the world of tomorrow? The brutal, terrifying reality is they cannot do both. There simply is not enough silver on planet Earth to go around.
Our analysis shows that in a full-scale, global, high-tech conflict, the military-industrial complexes of the world would burn through over 7,000 tons of silver a year. Now, to put that number into perspective, that is 1/3 of the entire planet's pre-war mining production. Gone, just for military use. And that's on top of all the existing demand from industry and investors. It is utterly and completely unsustainable.
The collapse would happen shockingly fast. In this scenario, strategic government stockpiles would be completely depleted in less than 3 months. After that, you'd see the institution of state-controlled economies. Governments would begin confiscating private holdings to feed the war machine. But even that desperate measure only buys them a little time. High-tech warfare, as we currently understand it, could only be sustained for about a year. After that, we're thrown back in time. We'd be forced to fight wars the way we did in the 20th century, without smart chips, without drones, without precision weapons.
So, after all of this, what is the ultimate takeaway? For decades, we've been obsessed with the idea of superweapons and doomsday devices, but it turns out we've been overlooking the most fundamental constraint of all.
The wars of the future will not be ended by atomic bombs, but by empty warehouses. The sheer physical scarcity of one single element, silver, is the ultimate checkmate on the military-industrial ambition of every nation on Earth. It is the absolute physical limit of war. When this crisis hits, governments will believe the choice is clear: sacrifice progress in AI to fund their war efforts. They will try to trade the future to survive the present. But it's a fool's bargain. They are destined to fail, and in the end, they will be left with neither military victory nor technological dominance. We are collectively accelerating towards a brick wall, and we haven't even touched the brakes.
That gold price of over $4,600 is just a symptom. It's the warning shot across the bow. The real earthquake is coming from silver. If you own physical silver today, you aren't just holding an asset, you're holding a piece of the future, the one material that will ultimately decide who holds power and who does not. And so, the question I leave you with is this. On January 17th, 2026, when this all comes to a head, how will you be prepared?
يا نفس إن لم تظفري لا تجزعي وإلى